Very good morning, dear students. Welcome back for yet another class for class 7, and the subject that I'm going to do is geography. I do hope my dear students are doing their assignments at home. I have finished a couple of chapters, and please make sure you do your homework regularly, do your studies regularly. And now, as we have started the lockdown, I do hope that you will be staying at home and revising the lessons and going through the videos that are posted. So today I will be doing a new chapter for class 7, A, B and C, and the chapter is soil and weathering. So the surface of the earth, if you see, it's constantly changing. It has changed in the past, it is changing right now, and it will go on changing. It's a continuous process. Now, the changes that take place in our earth is mainly because of two very important movements. One is the sudden movement that takes place, which is, for instance, like we say, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the tsunamis. These are sudden changes that we feel, that we see on the surface of the earth. And because of which what happens is the earth's surface goes on changing. Then we also see the changes that take place very gradually on the surface of the earth, which are very slow and which we don't notice. It takes thousands of years for it to happen. But these changes that take place also will change the landform on the surface of the earth. For instance, the mountains can be made into plains, the plains can be made into plateau, the plateaus can be made into a valley, and so on. The earth's surface is constantly changing. Now it changes because of the internal movements, like we say, the tectonic plates that move, because of which we have earthquakes, volcanoes, we have the tsunamis taking place, which changes the surface of the earth, whereby the mountains, the plateaus, the plains are all changed. The changes on the surface of the earth take place. But then we also have another movement, which is a very slow and gradual movement, which also changes the surface of the earth. But it's a very slow process. It's a very gradual process. It takes thousands of years for the mountains to turn into plains, or the plains to turn into mountains, or plateaus, also, and so on. Therefore, the changes that take place on the surface of the earth, which are very gradual, takes place because of weathering, because of the rain, because of the ice, because of the wind. What happens is these changes takes place. So coming back again, we just discussed right now that the earth's surface is constantly changing, and the change is because of the sudden movements like earthquakes, volcanoes and tsunamis, and also the gradual changes that take place on the surface of the earth because of the action of wind, water, waves and ice. Because of which what happens, the land surface goes on changing, but it's a very, very gradual process. Now we know that the earth is basically made up of rocks. The earth is basically made up of rocks. Now the rocks are found in different forms on the surface of the earth. It can be found in a very huge boulder, form of a boulder, or it can be found as minute as a sand, silt or clay. That means rocks can be found in the form of a boulder, or it can be found in a very small, minute form like sand, silt and clay. Now rocks are made up of minerals. They are the aggregate of minerals. So rocks are made up of minerals, and they are the aggregate of minerals, or they can be defined as the aggregate of minerals. Different rocks have different minerals. Different rocks have different minerals. Now, what is a mineral? What are minerals? Minerals are naturally occurring inorganic substance which have a definite chemical composition and physical property. Once again, I repeat, minerals are naturally occurring inorganic substance which have a definite physical property, and a chemical composition. Minerals are usually crystalline in nature. They are usually crystalline in nature. For instance, if you see silica, see, this is one example, silica, quartz, and even feldspar. See, these are some of the examples. See? So, rocks are made up of minerals. Different rocks have different minerals. And what is a mineral? A mineral is a naturally occurring inorganic substance which has a definite physical property and a chemical composition. Minerals are usually crystalline in nature. For example, I told you, see, minerals of examples are silica, quartz, and feldspar. Now, let us look into what are the uses of rocks. Why are rocks very important? Or what are the uses of rocks? Now, the rocks can be used in various forms. If you go back to the ancient times, rocks were used as tools, weapons. Today, the rocks are being used for construction of dams, roads, buildings. See? Rocks also give us a lot of minerals, like bauxite, iron ore, dolomite, manganese, limestone, gypsum. See, it gives us such a lot of minerals which are so very important to us to make different things. We make so many things out of minerals which are in the raw state. After it's processed and refined, then we get different products. See? So, rocks also give us a lot of minerals. We have fossil fuels that are found in the rocks. Fossil fuels like coal and petroleum, which are so very important to us, are found in rocks. These are the fuel that we use, energy. These are the energy that we use, non-renewable energy. After you use it, then it gets exhausted. So, fossils are also found. See, even fossils are found in the rocks. Besides the, fuel. Besides the fuel I was talking about, the fossil fuels like coal and petroleum that I just told you. We also get fossils of the plants and animals. Dead remains of plants and animals are also found in the rocks. See? So, but that we have to keep in mind. And then fossils also, the rocks also give us an idea about the age of the earth. That means geologists study the rocks in order to know, the past, in order to know the origin of the earth. Geologists study the rocks. So the rocks are useful for it's useful in so many ways to all of us. Now let's see the types of rocks that we are going to study today. Okay, so basically there are three types of rocks we're going to study. Number one is igneous rocks. Number two we have is sedimentary rocks. And number three we have is, this is number two. And number three we have is metamorphic. Metamorphic rocks. Now, I do hope you are revising a lesson continuously. I know it gets very monotonous to see the videos, but we got to do that. We always need to do things which are difficult in life. Watching a television is very easy. Playing a mobile is also very easy. But we need to do things which are difficult, like reading a good book or staying and studying for longer durations is difficult. But we got to do these things, and these things will ultimately bring you success and satisfaction in your later part of your life. So please, students, make sure you have a regular attendance with your class and make sure you study regularly as well. So we're going to do the three types of rocks that we are doing right now, and that is the igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and the metamorphic rock. Now first of all, what is an igneous rock? What is an igneous rock? Igneous rocks are those rocks which are formed when the molten magma cools down. That means when the magma from the interior of the earth comes up, and if it explodes in the form of volcano, and when this exploded magma which comes out flows on the surface of the earth in the form of lava, When it cools down, then it forms into what is called as an igneous rock. So, igneous rocks are the rocks which are formed when the molten magma cools down inside the Earth's surface or on the surface of the Earth. Once again, I repeat, igneous rocks are those rocks which are formed when the molten magma cools inside the Earth's surface or on the surface of the Earth. Now, when the volcano erupts, see, when this magma is coming up, this molten lava is called as magma. But when it explodes and comes out, it is called as lava. So igneous rocks are those rocks which are formed when the molten magma cools inside the Earth's surface or on the surface of the Earth. When this lava, when this liquid, hot liquid, molten liquid is inside the Earth's surface, it is called as magma. But when it comes and explodes and comes on the surface of the Earth, it is called as lava. So igneous rocks, once again I am repeating, is the rocks which are formed when the molten magma cools inside the Earth's surface or on the surface of the Earth. Now there are two types of igneous rocks. One is an intrusive and the other one is extrusive. What is an intrusive igneous rock and what is an extrusive igneous rock? Now, the intrusive igneous rocks are those rocks which are formed when the molten magma cools inside the Earth's surface. That means when the molten liquid, hot molten liquid, that is the rocks which have been melted because of high temperature, when they are coming up, see, this is the molten liquid. Inside is called as magma. So when this magma tries to come up, and as it comes up, but because of the lack of pressure, what happens is this magma cools inside the Earth's surface. It cools inside the Earth's surface. It turns into a hard solid rock called as an intrusive igneous rock. Once again I repeat, when the molten magma cools inside the Earth's surface, because of the lack of pressure, it's unable to come out in the form of volcanic eruption. So when the magma cools inside the Earth's surface, it forms into a hard solid rock called as an intrusive igneous rock. Now the examples of the intrusive igneous rock, if you see, is granite. Granite. Granite is an example of an intrusive igneous rock. Dolerite is also another example. Intrusive igneous rock. Now what is an extrusive igneous rock? Extrusive igneous rocks are those rocks which are formed on the surface of the Earth. That means when the magma, when the volcano erupts, see, when the volcano erupts, and as the volcano erupts, what happens? The lava will flow. Now this is called as a lava. Inside the Earth's surface is called as magma, but when it explodes and comes out, it is called as lava. So when this lava flows on the surface of the Earth, and after some time, for a long duration, if it goes on flowing, then what happens? Slowly by slowly, the speed will also reduce, the temperature will also reduce, and therefore what happens? It turns into a hard solid rock. Because of the cold temperature, the lava will start to freeze, cool down, and turn into a hard solid rock. So when these type of rocks are formed, it is called as an extrusive igneous rock. Once again I am saying, when the volcano erupts and when the magma comes out on the surface of the Earth, this magma that comes on the surface of the Earth, which is called as lava now, will flow on the surface of the Earth. After some time, when this lava goes on flowing, it cools down. The speed also decreases, minimizes, and slowly by slowly what happens? It solidifies, it turns into a hard solid rock, which is called as an extrusive igneous rock. The example we know is basalt. Basalt is an example of an extrusive igneous rock. So this is something about the igneous rock. Now let's go to the second one, that is the sedimentary rock. What is a sedimentary rock? A sedimentary rock is a rock which is formed when the sediments are compressed. Once again I repeat, sedimentary rocks are those rocks when the sediments are compressed. Sediments, that means suppose we have a rock here, boulder here, and land is here, let's just see, we have a land here. Now because of erosion, because of the rainwater, because of the wind, or because of the glacier or ice, what happens? This rock or this mountain, whatever it is broken down, and these particles are taken down. The sediments are taken down. Now these fine broken down particles are called as sediments. So these sediments are taken down. And as the sediments goes on collecting here, it goes on collecting here, layer by layer. That is why it's also called as a layered rock. See, sedimentary rocks are also called as layered rock. See, or they are called as sedimentary rocks. They are called as layered rock because they are formed in strata, layer by layer. So what happens is when the sediments goes and then collects here in layers, what happens? Slowly by slowly the sediments goes on increasing. More and more sediments are collected, more and more sediments are collected, and in course of time the weight of the sediments goes on increasing. It becomes heavier and heavier, and they apply more and more pressure down. More and more pressure is applied by the sediments down, and in course of thousands of years, hundreds and hundreds of years, what happens is they turn into a hard solid rock called as a sedimentary rock. So sedimentary rocks in very simple terms are the rocks which are formed when the sediments are compressed. When the sediments go and collect in a lower area, and when they are compressed because of the overlying layers, because of the more sediments that are on top, when they are compressed, pressed down, it turns into a hard solid rock which is called as a sedimentary rock. That is why the fossils are found in the sedimentary rocks, because as they are collecting in layers, what happens? Sometimes an animal may go and die here. And then the body gets decomposed, the bones are still there, but then some more sediments goes and collects on top of that layer. The bone is also covered, and then ultimately what happens? It turns into a hard solid rock, which is called as a sedimentary rock. And then when people start to dig the rocks out, these rocks come out in layers, layer by layer it comes out. And as they take the rocks, break the rocks in layers, what happens is we see that the fossils, the remains of plants and animals, the dead remains of plants and animals are visible here, are lying there, are found there, because they are being compressed within the layers. That is why we find fossils in the sedimentary rock, because they are formed in layers by layer. So when you break the rock also, the rocks break out in layers. So that is how we get a sedimentary rock. Now if you see the example sedimentary rock we have is sandstone, then we have limestone, rock salt, see. Sandstone, limestone, rock salt are some of the examples of sedimentary rock. Sandstone, limestone and rock salt are some of the examples of sedimentary rock. Now we move a little bit further to the third one, and that is the metamorphic rock. What is a metamorphic rock? A metamorphic rock is a rock basically which is formed, or before we go to what is a metamorphic rock, what does this word metamorphic mean? It's basically derived from a word called as metamorphism, which means change. So a metamorphic rock is a rock which is formed because of change. Because of change. That means they are formed because of the change in the Ignatian sedimentary rocks. When high heat and pressure is applied to the Ignatian sedimentary rocks, these rocks completely change. Into a new type of rock which is called as a metamorphic rock. So a metamorphic rock is a rock which is formed because of change. And they are changed in the sedimentary and the igneous rock. That means metamorphic rock is basically derived when Ignatian sedimentary rocks are changed because of high heat and pressure. These rocks totally change in their structure, and because of which we get a new type of rock which is called as a metamorphic rock. For instance, if you see marble, we get marble from limestone and slate from clay. See, marble from limestone, and we get is slate from clay. So that is how we get what is called as metamorphic rock. That means marble from limestone and slate from clay are the examples of metamorphic rock. So these are the three types of rock which I have just discussed: the igneous rock, sedimentary rocks and metamorphic rock. Okay, I hope you are paying attention. Okay. Now we go to the next one. A little bit further. Okay, now let us see now the next one, that is weathering. What is weathering? Now I told you the Earth's surface is constantly changing because of the forces that take place on the Earth's surface. Now, one of the very important aspects we have to discuss is now weathering. Now what is weathering? Weathering is the breaking down of rocks. Weathering is the breaking down or is a disintegration and decomposition of rocks in their place of origin. Weathering is the disintegration or decomposition of rocks in their place of origin. That means when the rocks break down because of different action, when the rocks break down and when they fall in the same place, when they fall in the same place, what happens? It is called as weathering. Weathering is the disintegration and decomposition of rocks in their place of origin. When the rocks break down and collect in the same place, it is called as weathering. But whereas soil erosion is the removal or breaking down of rocks whereby transporting them to another place is called as soil erosion. Okay. Soil erosion is basically the breaking down and transporting the broken down particles to another place is called as soil erosion. But whereas in weathering, the rocks are broken down and they collect in the same place. In soil erosion, they are broken down, and after they are broken down, after they are eroded, what happens? They are taken to another place. Because of wind or water, they are taken to another place whereby we had what is called as soil erosion. That means soil erosion means the soil, entire thing is changed. They are taken from one place to another place in soil erosion. But in terms of weathering, when the rocks break down, they fall and collect in the same place. Okay, that is what is a slight difference between weathering and soil erosion. Now, factors that affect weathering. Weathering takes place because of different aspects. Like first one, if you see, what are the factors which are cause weathering? We have number one is properties of the rocks. Properties of the rocks, number one. Properties of the rocks. Now different rocks have different minerals, and the minerals stability also varies. The minerals stability also varies. Therefore, some minerals are more soluble. Some minerals are very soluble, and therefore they are weathered very fast. Therefore, weathering takes place very, very fast in these type of rocks. For instance, we see calcite. Then we also have halite. Okay, we have calcite. Is there one?